Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a really complex and frankly powerful story that stretches back decades. It's all about hidden systems, the fight for transparency, and specifically these secret codes found on veterans' discharge forms, the DD214s. Those forms are critical. They detail a whole military career, discharge status.
Yeah.
They're essential for getting benefits later on. And these codes, well, they weren't just some minor bureaucratic thing. They had a devastating impact. If a veteran had one of these bad codes, it could literally stop them from getting benefits, maybe even getting a job. Imagine that, serving your country, then being secretly blocked by a code you don't even know about.
And it gets even more disturbing, honestly. According to the source material we're looking at, the allegation is that when these codes did block benefits, well, the money didn't just vanish. It was supposedly diverted to secret accounts. The source actually uses the term organized crime to describe this system.
Organized crime. Wow. That implies something deliberate, structured, way beyond just an error.
Exactly. And that really sets the stage for this huge legal fight that bubbles up. It starts simmering around 1974, but these specific code issues really come into focus in February 76.
And just to give you a sense of how high the stakes were, get this. During the legal battle, a huge, like 5-inch thick transcript was apparently destroyed by the government, just gone, even though there was tons of other paperwork and evidence floating around.
Yeah, that really underscores the claim that information was being, actively suppressed.
So our mission today is to trace that journey, follow the steps taken to uncover this alleged secret system, and really try to understand what it all meant.
Okay, so the legal wheels really start turning in March 1976, right? That's when an amended claim gets filed,
Right.
focusing squarely on these codes.
That's the formal kickoff, yeah. And what follows is this incredibly intense 2-year research period. We're talking March 76 right through to September 78. The individual driving this lawsuit essentially had to become an expert on Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA, and the Privacy Act. Those are the tools you use to get documents out of the government, basically.
Exactly. So countless requests, endless trips back and forth to Washington, D.C., walking the halls of Congress, just digging and digging.
That kind of persistence, it must have started turning some heads.
It did. Eventually, some pretty significant congressional figures got involved, started looking into it. People like Senator McGovern, Congressman Les Aspin, Congressman Koch, Congressman Seiberling.
This is reaching a national level of attention.
Right. And there's even a specific mention in the congressional record from April 1977. It's noted as Plaintiff's Exhibit Number 12. The source says he gave a very good account of what was happening.
And does that record give any sense of how Congress was viewing this?
It does. There's a really powerful quote in there from one of the congressmen. He says, "It is my belief that these veterans have been done a great injustice by the armed forces and by society."
A great injustice. That's a strong statement coming from Congress.
Absolutely. It shows clear support, validating the claims being made.
So after all that digging, 2 years of it, September 1978 rolls around. Time for court.
Exactly. The scene shifts to Auburn, New York, a 2-day trial in federal court.
And the judge was Edmund Port, believed to be the oldest federal judge in the country at that point.
That's right, Judge Edmund Port. And the government brings in, well, the source calls her a rather unique witness. Her name was June Hughes from Randolph Air Force Base down in Texas.
And who was she? What was her role?
She was identified as the person who, allegedly, came up with this whole secret code system in the first place. The architect, if you will.
Wow. And there's a strange little story connected to her name, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite telling. A couple of years later, the person involved in the lawsuit is at a Senate Veterans Affairs Committee meeting in D.C. Standard procedure, everyone introduces themselves. This woman introduces herself as Ann Hughes. So naturally, the question comes up, are you any relation to June Hughes?
And her reaction?
Instantaneous. Turned beet red, apparently grabbed her papers, and just walked straight out. Never saw her again at those meetings.
Doesn't exactly suggest there's nothing sensitive about the name, does it?
Not at all. It speaks volumes, really. But back to the trial itself, there was another kind of startling piece of testimony that came out.
Oh, what was that?
Testimony about a top secret special operations outfit in Vietnam. Mentioned things like black airplanes with no star tail number.
Secret planes in Vietnam. How did that connect to discharge codes?
Well, it didn't directly, but it painted this backdrop, right? A picture of maybe a broader culture of secrecy within the military. It hinted that if that kind of stuff was hidden, maybe secret codes on paperwork weren't so far-fetched. Stuff the American public certainly didn't know about then.
Interesting context. And what about media attention for this trial? You'd think a case like this would draw reporters.
You would think. But apparently, despite notifying, quote, everybody in New York City and all the major networks, only one single news reporter showed up.
Just one. For a case alleging systemic harm to veterans, that's surprising.
It is. Makes you wonder. Anyway, during the trial, 19 exhibits were submitted. One of the really key ones was Plaintiff's Exhibit 19. They called it the infamous Corporation Questionnaire.
Corporation questionnaire, what did that involve?
It was basically a survey sent out, and it showed that major corporations, Honeywell, Boeing, Goodyear, plus banks, life insurance companies, they were all getting these secret code numbers too.
So it wasn't just internal government stuff. Private companies had this data.
Exactly. And these big companies, they often own hundreds of smaller subsidiary companies, right? So the potential reach of this coded information was huge. Getting that exhibit admitted into evidence was apparently a real battle. You can imagine why.
Yeah, absolutely. What other kinds of evidence came up?
There were official Department of Defense directives and instructions, standard stuff maybe, but also two really important documents. Staff studies done by the Secretary of Defense, things that hadn't been public before.
So internal high-level studies.
Right. And adding to that picture of high-level awareness, there was another document, a fascinating detail, really. It showed Nixon's White House counsel, a guy named J. Fred Bozard.
From the Nixon White House.
Yeah. Showing him apparently concurring with her opinion, likely June Hughes's opinion, on what to do or not to do about these code numbers.
So potential awareness right up to the White House counsel's office during the Nixon administration?
That's what the document suggested, yeah. High-level stuff.
Okay, so the trial wraps up. Testimony heard, evidence submitted. What was the judge's decision?
Judge Port gave his decision in January 1979. And it was a bit of a legal sidestep. He basically said that because the government had stated on the record that they had corrected your records, meaning the plaintiff's records specifically.
Ah, so the government claimed they fixed the problem for this one person.
Right. And because of that claim, the judge ruled there was no subject matter jurisdiction. In simple terms, he said, since they say it's fixed, the court doesn't have the authority to rule on this anymore.
But wait, the whole point was this was a systemic issue, right? Affecting potentially many people. How could correcting one record dismiss the whole case?
Exactly. The plaintiff's reaction, immediate skepticism, because they understood these codes weren't just on paper, they were disseminated through computer systems.
Right, spread electronically?
Yeah, across who knows how many databases, VA, corporations, etc. You couldn't just correct it easily, especially back then in the late 70s. The understanding of how fast information spread digitally was, well, limited for many.
So the government's claim of a simple fix seemed pretty unbelievable to someone who knew the system.
Highly questionable, yeah. So unsurprisingly, the decision was appealed.
Makes sense. Where did the appeal go?
To the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals, right there in New York City. The hearing for that was in September 1979.
Okay, so moving up the judicial ladder.
But then, something crucial happens. A real bombshell document finally surfaces. It's labeled Exhibit 19A, dated October 30, 1979.
October 30th. So that's after the appeal hearing in September.
A full month after the hearing concluded, yes. And here's the kicker. This document had actually been requested a year or two before the appeal even happened.
He sat on it. It sounds like it was deliberately withheld.
That's certainly the implication drawn from the source material. And what this document revealed was absolutely staggering.
What did it say?
It contained the official estimate of how many veterans were affected by these codes. The number, as of 1977, approached 20 million.
Wait, 20 million? Are you serious?
20 million individuals. Think about that scale.
But didn't the Department of Defense publicly say something totally different? I remember something about Walter Cronkite reporting their numbers.
You're right. Publicly, DOD testimony reported via Cronkite had claimed it was only a couple 100,000 veterans affected.
A couple 100,000 versus almost 20 million. That's not just a discrepancy.
The source explicitly calls it perjury by the Department of Defense for withholding this document, this number, throughout the entire trial and appeal, only releasing it after the appeal hearing was done.
The implications are just enormous. What else did this Exhibit 19A reveal?
It explicitly stated that copies of these forms with the codes, sometimes called SPIN numbers, in this document are furnished to the Veterans Administration for determining basic eligibility for veterans' benefits.
So a direct link. The codes went straight to the VA for benefit decisions.
A direct link confirmed in their own document. And it gets better. It also cited a recommendation from the Privacy Protection Study Commission to Congress. The recommendation was to issue new DD214s to all discharges whose forms currently include SPIN numbers.
Issue new forms to potentially 20 million people.
Exactly. A massive systemic correction was officially recommended.
Okay, let's just pause on the practical side of that for a second. Updating 20 million discharge papers, what would that even cost?
The document itself included an estimate, roughly $100 per separation.
$100 per veteran times 20 million.
You're looking at $1 to $2 billion in late 1970s money.
A staggering amount of money and a massive administrative undertaking.
Huge. But the source suggests interpreting this through the lens of, quote, Washington political speak. The real fear wasn't just the billion or $2 billion or the hassle of reissuing forms.
What was it then?
It was the political fallout, the sheer CYA involved. How could they possibly admit they had, in the source's words, stabbed in the back 20 million veterans?
Including combat vets.
Yeah, our combat veterans and our brave men, potentially the next generation of leaders, admitting that scale of error or deliberate action, depending on your interpretation, the political consequences would have been immense. A catastrophic loss of trust.
It's just an incredible story when you lay it all out. The sheer scale, 20 million lives potentially impacted by secret codes, and one person's decades-long fight to dig it all out, facing what looks like serious institutional resistance and information suppression.
It really does hammer home how vital government transparency is, doesn't it? It's a stark example of how information, or the lack of it, can be weaponized, how it can be used to deny people their rights, their benefits. And it shows just how hard it can be to hold power accountable when information is buried or twisted.
So thinking about this today, it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if a system like this, affecting millions, could stay hidden for so long back then? Well, what critical information might still be obscured today? What systems might be influencing our lives, our opportunities, without us even knowing? What part of this whole saga stands out the most to you? Something to definitely think about.